All right, we are live. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Megan Bickford, and I am joined by Corey O'Connor, our Director of Product Marketing. We have a really exciting topic, and today's webinar is going to be Cover Your SaaS Data Loss Prevention for the Cloud. Before I turn it over to Corey, just a couple housekeeping items. I think the biggest thing is we want to know what questions you have. What questions do you have about DLP? What questions do you have about SaaS security? So please feel free to submit your questions to us. We'll make sure to address them at the end of the webinar. I know we have an hour scheduled, but really we'll only take up about 30 minutes of your time. So we hope you guys can stick around. All right, Corey, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Great. So first of all, thank you all for taking the time today and join us for today's webinar. As Megan mentioned, the focus for today is on DLP for cloud, or more specifically for SaaS applications. I'm your presenter, Corey O'Connor. I run the product marketing team here at DoControl. Before we get into it, I always like to start first by a little bit of an overview on DoControl, who we are and what we do. We are a emerging SaaS, a data access SaaS security vendor. We're based in New York City. Our product engineering kind of R&D team is all based in Tel Aviv. Leadership came from Google Cloud Security, and we are very much focused on providing security teams with the automated self-service tools that they need for data access monitoring, orchestration, and remediation within all of the different business critical SaaS applications that are being utilized today. We're a growing company. We've been around since 2020, just raised our Series B just a few months back. Some great logos, as you can see on the slide. Our investors include Insight Partners. CrowdStrike is an investor as well. They're an investor, a technology alliance partner, as well as a customer. RTP Global and many others, funding DoControl's platform. So let's get into it. So first and foremost, SaaS is a challenge. It's an emerging attack vector. When you look at all of the different recent attacks over the last couple of years, organizations today are leveraging a number of different content and collaboration applications within SaaS to enable their business to become more agile, to give their employees, contractors, and third-party vendors the tools they need to be effective in their jobs. And in doing that, they run the risk of data overexposure, creating an opportunity for files in the context of DLP for data to be accessible. There's more data being generated now, and it's available in more places than ever before. And when you review this slide, you'll see a number of attacks where, again, content, files, sensitive data and files that was exchanged over some of these applications became a problem for a number of different organizations. Most recently, the Okta breach with Lapsus, where an AWS key was shared over a Slack channel. Again, the example here is it's a business enablement function where developers are sharing AWS keys and different credentials, a means to be effective in doing their job, but oftentimes they don't go back and actually remove the file. And that's essentially what we do at DoControl is try to minimize data overexposure, bring organizations' risk profile down as it relates to SaaS. All right, some inspirational quotes here from the Hulkster. Negativity and Hulkamania, two things that don't go together. Hulk Hogan is an American treasure, held in high regard. A lesser known person, probably lesser known quote, traditional DLP and SaaS, two things that don't go together. It doesn't work. DLP in SaaS environments is not effective, specifically with unstructured data file and types within SaaS. DLP was, these tools and processes were initially created to prevent sensitive data from becoming lost, misused, or accessed by unauthorized identities. And these traditional DLP programs are really having a hard time achieving those desired outcomes of, reducing the risk of data loss, mainly due to the natural way in which we do business, right? How sensitive data and files are now accessed, manipulated, and shared across all of the different users. You have employees, you have partners, you have customers that you might be engaging with, you have contractors, you've got third-party vendors. When you think about all the different as-a-service offerings that are out there, they're becoming increasingly more adopted, again, as a means to drive business enablement, make the business more agile. And in this process, the IT estate is becoming significantly more complex, and it's making those traditional approaches to preventing data loss less effective. And when you try to approach DLP with those legacy technologies, it's a high maintenance program. You're overwhelming teams with a significant amount of false positives, of repeat offenders on an ongoing basis. You're taking the time and attention away from those security folks to focus on the events that actually present risk to the business. And when we talk to organizations that have DLP, most times they'll just black hole the solution, right? All these detections are just ignored because they're inundated with these false positives. And when you look at SaaS is a critical egress channel, right, for modern businesses. And they're out of scope with traditional DLP. To help drive the business, organizations, again, are leveraging a number of these different applications like Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, Box, Slack, so on and so forth. And data is created, it's exchanged by a number of different identities, which I just mentioned, across all of these different applications, which makes preventing the loss and misuse of sensitive data a challenge at scale. Think about all the different applications that a modern enterprise is leveraging. It's upwards of 200 applications. Now consider all the different users that have access to those apps. Now think of all the different files and data within each of those applications across all of those different users. Trying to keep up with that SaaS data sprawl from an IT and security perspective is unmanageable. It's expensive. Trying to rely on native SaaS functionality is not effective. And I mentioned earlier, there's more data to steal and there's more places to steal it from. So organizations today need a solution that scales and provides secure access to the sensitive data and files and prevent intentional or accidental data loss within these SaaS environments. And that's why organizations are turning to DoControl and partnering with us to ensure their end of shared responsibility model within SaaS. Okay. Again, in the context of DLP, it's a cross-functional challenge. And this is a bit of a repeat in the previous slide. Look at all the different domains and groups within a standard organization. You've got legal, you've got your business users, marketing folks like myself are high-risk users. I mean, we're sharing data and files with a number of different agencies for different parts of the marketing and sales function. So there's data everywhere, right? And it's a risk across all of these different groups. You've got legal, you've got IT, you've got different compliance frameworks. You can see some of the different use cases listed here, insider threat. You've got now, the introduction of more and more non-human or machine identities that are accessing, application to application and accessing data within those applications as well. So again, multiple SaaS data and permissions. And all of this becomes a challenge that becomes more complex as the organization grows and scales out. So that's why DoControl exists. We recognized this opportunity, and digging in a bit more deeply into that. When you look at most companies, they have an identity provider. They've got an identity an access management solution to ensure their users have the appropriate permissions, entitlements, access that they require to be effective in their job. Excuse me. So identity is the first piece. Second piece is ensuring those users have a secure connection to the different systems and applications that they need access to. And you need to make sure that that connection is brokered in a secure way. So you've got solutions like zero trust network access and VPN-less technologies that exist. So those are the two pillars, IDP, ZTNA. Once you get past those two pillars, you now have access to the different applications that you should have access to. But there's a big insider threat risk here, right? Because once you provision access to an identity, and they should have access to all of these different applications, if they take advantage of that access and they maliciously, exfiltrate data, send files to personal email accounts, whatever it might be, most times, especially in the context of DLP, they can't detect those activities within SaaS applications. And that's why we exist. Again, we identified this massive gap in the landscape of SaaS security. And this is a screenshot of our platform at a high level. You can see there's kind of three components to it, or pillars within risk management. You've got alerts, you've got security workflows, and you have your risk posture, which is driven by analytics. It's all agentless, it's event-driven, it's all APIs and webhooks, which you can see here. And then how it actually works is it's an event-driven platform. So we integrate with all of your business-critical SaaS applications. You can see here on the slide just an example of some of those applications that we support. And then we also have your data ecosystem. You've got different technology investments that you've made to run the business, your IDP, your HR application, EDR, SIM, SOAR, ITSM, TIP, right? So we don't sit in between these two things, but we integrate with both of these channels via APIs and webhooks. And the big value driver for DoControl is the event-driven nature of the platform. We're querying all of these events. We're aggregating all of the different metadata sources across all of these different applications, which allows security teams to create very granular, very specific, very robust data access control policies, which we'll show in the solution demonstration, to, again, mitigate the risk of data loss in the context of DLP again. Over here, you can see alerts, you can see analytics and workflows. We touched on this briefly. The bread and butter is the workflows, right? This is very unique to DoControl. We can address a high number of use cases. And again, it's all tied back to the event-driven nature of our platform. And the main benefit here as well is we can extract the business context of what's actually taking place within the environment. So if you have an identity that is, or user, I should say, that's sharing files that might seem sensitive, they could be sensitive, but it's a part of a standard business process. We want to ensure that those users can do their job effectively without slowing them down. So we can create extremely granular workflow policies that enable the appropriate amount of access. We can engage with the individual actor to ensure that their access or sharing files or whatever is a part of that workflow is a part of that standard business process. If it's not, we can, again, reach out and say, hey, are you sure you want to share files with this third-party vendor? If they say yes, we can then create a time-bound functionality where we check in with them after 30 days. If it's a business engagement with an agency, if they don't need access after 30 days, they probably shouldn't have access. Once they close up that business engagement, we revoke that access. We delete that, accessible link, which was done over Slack. So, excuse me. Our platform is amazing in terms of minimizing data overexposure and providing only the appropriate amount of access and least privilege enforcement at the SaaS data layer, so your users can get their jobs done effectively. All right, so let's talk about DLP. In the context of DLP, what does DoControl provide? First, the ability to manage. So I mentioned it's an event-driven platform. We're leveraging all the metadata to help you better understand your risk across the SaaS environment. You can define enterprise data usage policies. You can report on policy violations. And again, focus on the security workflows, right? Implementing secure data access control policies or workflows to automatically prevent data exfiltration. You get a deep audit trail of all your different internal and external user activity. And we also pair it up with anomaly detection to identify and respond to any threats that might come in. Excuse me. So asset management, right? That's a big piece of it. You've got full visibility into the entire SaaS estate, all the different identities that are internal users as well as external collaborators, and an entire event trail of what's taking place, who's accessing what, who's sharing which files with which identities. The next thing, discover. We use natural language processing, or NLP, to scan files that are stored within cloud applications, and we can analyze the text within them and extract specific key phrases, entities, and sentiment for further classification. So data classification is a big part of DLP. You can control who has access to certain data. You can redact sensitive information and use our security workflows engine to create dynamic DLP policies that will help you remediate threats, as well as support very stringent compliance and regulatory requirements. So data classification, PII scanning, again, all critical to DLP, and something that we support within our platform. Monitor. Every interaction within all of your SaaS applications is tracked and monitored by our platform. And we can create a baseline of normal activity for each individual user. It's kind of your standard user behavioral analytics. This will provide the context, again, to identify between trusted business activities and those that actually present a risk of data loss. Any threat indicators that are picked up, we detect them and we block them in real time. In addition, we can push those detections to a SIM or a SOAR solution to correlate our detections alongside many other anomalies. That way you can have a more holistic view of security events and make sure that SaaS is captured within those tools. And then lastly, protect. Access can be provided and revoked on demand, and the principle of least privilege enforced at scale. I mentioned this earlier. These are fully customizable policies. We'll talk about this when we show the product demo. And we can trigger them by hundreds of different SaaS event types. And that allows you to enforce consistent policies and controls across your complex SaaS application estate, and make sure that you're applying these policies to the different groups, domains, and individuals based on risk. You can take a risk-based approach to securing your SaaS data. Not every user has the same level of risk. Think about, the C-level. The C-level is a target. They have access. They've got privileged access to sensitive data and content, right? So, folks in the finance department, folks in legal, right? These are different groups that have different levels of access to sensitive data. You want to make sure that you're applying the appropriate controls and policies based on risk, right? So that is that risk-based approach to security. And one of the unique things about DoControl is we can help you refine and fine-tune your DLP workflows by intelligently recommending policies over time. All right, let's actually look at the product. So this is, let me just move things over a bit. We're going to log into the DoControl console, right? The first thing that we'll look at is the risk posture, organizational posture. So this is essentially your dashboard view, kind of your executive level dashboard view of, in our case, kind of our demo environment, right? You can see Corey O'Connor listed here. Top exposed drives, right? The top 5 folks are in the marketing department, like I mentioned earlier, right? So CEO, HR, right? So like I mentioned, each user carries a different level of risk. In terms of the dashboard, you get a high level overview of all of the different accounts that are exposed, the top sharing departments, owners with shared assets, exposed drives, risk alerts, encryption keys that are PEM files which are exchanged potentially over Slack or other channels, remediation actions, so on and so forth, right? So this is kind of your high level overview of the platform and where your risk level is. Let me log in here. So the first thing is actually onboarding applications, right? So it's very easy. In a few clicks, you can onboard a number of different applications that your business is using, request read-write permissions on behalf of DoControl so we can enforce those security workflows and enforce control policies within these applications, and we can apply them across all of them, right? There's a number of companies that we speak to that use a number of different file sharing apps. There's no longer like a one solution shop, right? For most companies, they'll have installations of all of these different applications to share files, right? So you can create policies that are applicable based on use case, not by application. But yeah, in terms of onboarding the applications, it's simple, it's easy, couple clicks, and you're off and running. Next thing I wanted to show is the inventory, right? So I mentioned asset management earlier. You've got full insight into all of the different users, both internal and external to the business. You can see all the different applications listed on the top. You can click on each individual user, right, and get an idea of the events that have taken place. We query all of this information. We pull the JSON file if you want additional details. You can take specific quick actions on files. So if you recognize that, a file is publicly accessible, you can remove it. You can change the file owner. So you can take immediate action. So it's self-service as well, in addition to the automated remediation that we provide. But one of the cool new features that I just want to plug is OAuth visibility. So you have full visibility into all the sanctioned and unsanctioned applications within the estate, right? So this is huge. It's not just the applications that are integrated into our platform. You've got full insight into everything within the environment. So this is something that we just released actually yesterday. So some cool new features and functionality. Assets, groups, and domains. Again, you can add filters. You can drill down specifically on asset type. Not going to spend much time there. I just wanted to show the visibility that we expose into the SaaS application environment. The next thing, actually another cool new feature that I'm just going to plug quickly, alerting. You can set a severity rating. So create kind of customizable risk scoring based on events that take place. And you can filter these and prioritize these anomalies to streamline incident response and review those anomalies when they come in. But yeah, let's talk about workflows. This is our bread and butter here, right? Demo environment, so it's a bit slow. My internet connection is not great, so apologies in advance. I did create a couple of workflow policies in these other tabs just so they're available for review. But you can start from scratch and create a homegrown workflow policy. Again, event-driven platform, so you need some sort of a triggering event. So that could be a user from a specific group sharing a file externally or sharing a file to a private email account, whatever that event that would take place within the application, this is going to be the triggering event. And then from there, you would drag and drop. It's a no-code, low-code canvas. You drag and drop whatever the remediation notification steps are, conditional steps. Excuse me. So if something is a normal standard business process, you can allow access. Or if it's not, if it's high risk, you can revoke access. So it's all drag and drop, super easy, super simple. Creating policies is done in a few simple clicks. But what we've done at DoControl is we've created a library of different predefined playbooks or workflow templates. So there's like hundreds of different playbooks that are available for use. And you can see some of them here are based on kind of use case and then different applications that we support. Specifically with DLP, I just wanted to show you a couple, and then we can wrap up. So the first one is a simple policy, right? So the triggering event is when somebody shares a file within a Slack shared channel. You can see here, right? We're pulling in all of the event data. You can drag and drop and select whatever you need for this policy. We can run a PII file scan, right? So you can see all the different keywords that are high risk for the business that you want to check, right? So we're going to scan the file and look for these specific keywords, whether it's credit card information, whether it's social security numbers. You can create conditional looping, right? In this example, does it contain credit card information? No, it doesn't. So we want to remove the file from the channel. If it doesn't, then we're going to allow the share and then the execution. If it does contain it, then we're going to remove the file, right? So this is conditional looping. Again, you can drag and drop a time-bound waiting step, right? So if you want to, after a certain amount of time, check in, like if you're going to notify an individual actor, hey, do they still require access? You can set 30 days or whatever it might be, right? Days, minutes, whatever it is, to engage with that user. It could be lines of business managers, it could be the security team, it could be the individual actor, doesn't matter. Fully customizable. Again, drag and drop, low code, no code. Excuse me. Last thing. So this example, this is I just wanted to show this one because it really shows you how robust and comprehensive you can build out these workflow policies. We're not going to go through this workflow in its entirety, but I just wanted to share with you the robustness and the comprehensiveness of creating policies. Here you can see, those time-bound re-engagement loops. You can see approvals by individual actors. You can time it out, right? So if we reach out to an individual over email, right? You can do it over a Slack notification. You can pull in the file type, the file name, and say, hey, you've shared this file. You can see it right here, right? Here you can see a preview. You shared the following asset externally. Do you still require it to be shared? Yes, we do. If they don't reply, guess what? You can you can remove it automatically, or you can reroute it to the line of business manager, or you don't need to engage with the individual actor whatsoever. If it's a low risk business activity, then you don't need to do that. And this is a big value driver for DoControl. We're on an ongoing basis, we're able to continually engage with the workforce, those kind of standard business users, to be more mindful of their sharing practices and their security, right? So we don't want to inundate them with notifications over Slack, but if they're sharing something that is sensitive to the business, again, the fact that we can notify these users will inherently make them more security mindful, right? And again, like I mentioned earlier, if it's of higher risk, you notify the security team. You can automatically send a notification to a Slack channel that's dedicated for SaaS security incidents, right? This is something that we demonstrate all the time. So if I try to share a file with let's say that I'm an employee that is leaving the business and I'm trying to share content with a private email account, right? This is a common practice with people that are leaving a company. You can closely monitor those users and block and prevent the exfiltration of that data. But yeah, again, the main point I wanted to make here is the ease of use, right? These are all just dragged in and dropped in. You can set all of the conditions and configure each of these steps based on the events within the environment, right? We pull in all of those different events that take place. And from there, you can create these very robust workflows. And that's it. I mean, you create your workflow, you activate it. The platform is not meant for, security teams to be going in throughout the day. You're creating these policies, you're applying them, you're checking periodically on new policies that can be created over time. The point I'm trying to make is this is a super easy to use solution. When you consider like policy enforcement functionality within a CASB technology, it's extremely clunky. It's difficult to manage. The policies that you can implement are hard coded and limited. At DoControl, you can create a number of different workflow policies that address a number of different use cases. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen one more time, and we can just wrap things up here. All right, let me just share my slides. Great. So in summary, the DoControl difference, high impact, low maintenance solution to prevent the loss, leakage, and misuse of sensitive data across all of your different applications. Rich end user behavioral analytics to prevent the risk of malicious insiders from exfiltrating sensitive company data. Streamline incident response, right? We talked about this through the alerting, through the deep audit trail that we expose. Centrally enforcing dynamic DLP data access control policies across all of your different applications, and enforce data handling measures that comply with data protection, and again, supporting those regulatory requirements and frameworks from data access perspective, access to sensitive data, so on and so forth. I think in summary, it's a next gen solution across all your different SaaS apps. We're scanning and monitoring all of these applications, all of the data activity that is taking place. You have those end user behavioral analytics to prevent those insider threats. And then again, the big focus here is those security workflows to help prevent the loss, leakage, and misuse of sensitive company data. All right, and that's it. So Megan, any questions that might have come in through the Q&A?
Yes, let me grab those. And thanks so much, Corey, for spending the time on the topic of DLP. As you know, we were at RSA last week, and it definitely was a hot topic within conversations at our booth. Okay, so the first question I see, it says, which applications are supported in the platform?
Great question. So DoControl supports somewhere between 30 and 40 applications. We showed when we logged into the platform and we were reviewing the integration tab, you had seen an example of some of those applications that we support, but essentially they're your standard business critical apps, right? Google Drive, Microsoft O365, Box, Dropbox, Slack, Salesforce.com, CrowdStrike as well. So yeah, between 30 and 40, and the way that we onboard them is really driven by priority, right? So it's either a customer request of a big implementation of some of those applications, or again, more commonly, it's just the most popular applications that companies are using to drive their business. And yeah, Megan, as you mentioned, DLP is a hot topic. I just wanted to make a quick point. It's been around. It's kind of the dinosaur of all the different technologies out there. But the concept of DLP is still very prevalent. And, despite those technologies being older, I think it's top of mind for both CISOs and security practitioners to do everything they can to prevent the loss of sensitive data. And I think the big takeaway, hopefully from this webinar, is the fact that most organizations are using SaaS, right, to share files and data, right? It's no longer emailing files and data. It's exchanging things over Slack, public links over Slack, or sharing files directly over Google Drive. So these are the new ways in which users and organizations are doing business, and trying to prevent the loss of that data is still very prevalent. I know DLP is kind of this older technology and an older term, but the concept of it is still very relevant today.
Great. Thanks, Corey. I also just mentioned, there is on the platform a way to submit your questions to us. So feel free to shoot those over. We still have a couple more minutes. One other question that came through, can you elaborate on other security and IT solutions DoControl integrates with?
Sure. So we touched on this briefly as well in the demo. We integrate with Okta for your IDP provider. So all of your users, domains, and groups that are provisioned within Okta is fed into our platform. We integrate with HR applications like Bamboo HR. So, I mentioned earlier that departing employees often take files with them. So as soon as there's an employment status change within Bamboo, it automatically triggers a workflow to monitor those employees that are leaving and prevent them from exfiltrating data. We integrate with CrowdStrike. I mentioned that earlier. The other thing is we have an HTTP functionality within the workflows where you can do a call or a get or a push or whatever you want to call it, where we can request data or whatever from various tools, right? So for like ITSM, we can, if you're trying to share a file with a specific domain that's not approved, we can integrate with your ITSM via HTTP, automatically push a request to that IT team member to review that request and approve it. And that workflow gets triggered automatically back in and fed into DoControl to then share the file to that approved domain. So we have, built-in integrations, and then we have the ability, it's kind of like a plugin or a connector to integrate with a number of different tools and solutions out there.
Great. All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap things up. Just a couple other items, wanted to mention, all of this content was super awesome, and it was great to learn more about DLP, but we did want to mention that we also have a dedicated solutions page to DLP on our website, DoControl.io. So feel free to go browse on the website, learn a little bit more on the thought leadership around DLP and how DoControl is modernizing the approach to DLP. And then also, Corey, you mentioned insider risk being a really big concern. I would like to call out that we actually have an insider risk webinar on July 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern. The title of that webinar is Solving the Human Element of SaaS Data Security. So if you want to hear a little bit more about our insider risk approach and kind of what the market's saying around insider risk management, please tune in. You can find that webinar and register for it on the Bright Talk channel. All right. Thanks, everyone, for your time, and reach out if you have any questions. And thanks so much, Corey, for your time as well.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time today. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye now.